Welcome to the Hope on the Hard Road podcast, where you and your family can find community, find encouragement, and find hope for the road ahead. Speak encouraging words to one another. Build up hope so that you will all be together in this. 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Hey guys, welcome back. We are so excited to have Jill Miller on the podcast today. Jill is an adaptive curriculum writer who has a passion to expand the horizons of individuals with disabilities. After her daughter Kim was born with multiple disabilities, Jill employed her training as a special ed educator to design teaching tools to effectively convey the gospel message to Kim and her friends. From her labor of love, an entire series of Bethesda interactive Bible studies were born, as well as a family devotional called Finding Jesus on Upside Down Days. Through the years, Jill has started many businesses aimed at employing individuals affected by disability. At a fundamental level, Jill believes that individuals with disabilities can thrive, learn God's Word, and know His amazing love for them. Jill is a mother of 6 and a grandmother of many. She lives with her husband, author Paul Miller, and daughter Kim, as well as their many animals in rural Pennsylvania. So let's listen in to Jill's story.
Well, hi, Jill. Thank you for joining us today. We're real excited to, hear about your journey. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, let's see. I grew up in Philadelphia in a driveway. So it was crazy. And I met my husband through my best friend, Barbara.
Oh, wow.
And in high school. And we got married right after high school, out of high school. And his name is Paul. And he loves me, which is really amazing because sometimes I'm a pit to love. And before I married him, I did warn him I wanted a lot of children and I loved animals. So that meant a lot of animals. And God love him. He didn't know what he was doing, but he did marry me.
Love that.
And God has blessed us with 6 kids. And right now they range in age from about 35 to almost 50, which is impossible because I'm not 50, but they say they're almost 50, which is really funny. And they're married, except for Kim. So Kim is our fourth kid, and she's the one who has disabilities, and she brought a lot of change to her life, and God used her in amazing ways in our family. So let's see, we have a lot of grandkids. 19.
Oh,
that's
my
enough
God.
to make. I know that's enough to make you fall off your chair, isn't it? Yeah, I'm still falling off my chair. And we have a lot of animals, and it's a busy house, and God is just so good. So good.
Oh, I love that. Jill, I grew up with a lot of animals. We had chickens and horses and cats and dogs and fish and birds, you name it. So I totally empathize there. That's so fun.
I love that.
So fun. So, today we're talking about special needs ministries and in particular in the church. And so we're curious, what started you into working with special needs ministry in the church?
Wow. Well, we didn't have much of an option because all the kids would go to Sunday school, and Kimmer, as I call her, Kimmer, really didn't have a place to fit in. And so that meant we made a place for her to fit in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it really started. So I would teach her, and Paul would teach her as well, alongside other kids. They call them typical kids. Everybody has special needs. I remember Irma Bombeck saying, normal is the setting on a dryer.
Love it.
So she would be with typical normal kids in the Sunday school class. And so I would work alongside the teacher, adapting the lessons so she could get them, understand them, and then we would work on applying them at home. So that's kind of where it started. So she really wasn't walking till she was 3. And I would say probably Sunday school started around 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really quite a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you have a ministry called Bethesda,
Mhm.
and amazing things you guys are doing. Can you tell us kind of like the journey on how that took place and where you guys are now?
Okay. Yes, God is just so good. And I'm just so thankful for this time to be with you and just share just how good and how much Jesus loves our kids.
Mhm.
It's just incredible. So, Kim has a job. She walks dogs. So she goes from house to house. Somebody comes to her house, picks her up, and they go from house to house and they walk puppers where the parents of the puppers work. So she's pretty busy. And one particular day, she came home and she was just frustrated. She just kind of lit up. She kind of threw her book bag down and the lunch bag down. And I was like, oh boy. And she was frustrated. And I said, what's going on? And she uses a communication device to talk. And she's very good at it. God, it's incredible. It's her voice. And she typed out, I am so mad. And I said, what's going on? And she said, it's hot and I'm frustrated with the dogs. I'm frustrated. She went off. And I was able to share with her what I had learned in our women's Bible study that morning. And I just went through what I had learned and just about how God's always watching us and he knows what we go through and he's there and he's for us. And I just really noticed her like deflate.
Yeah.
And I went into the story with her, it was the woman at the well, and how God just stopped and met her on a hot day. And Kim rarely stops. She has two speeds. She does stop, but it's park and fourth gear. That's her. And she didn't park, but she just quieted. And then after we talked a bit, and then afterwards, she just walked away. And I was like, wow. I was just kind of wowed by the peace she had just sharing the word. And I had just recently, God actually kicked me out of my teaching job. I never would have left it. Like it was the boot. And I had been watching it was a hot day in September. And I'm watching the school buses go up and down from my kitchen window. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do, Lord? Why? And God just said, like, it was just like breathing. I thought, you know what? These kids really need to learn the word. They can learn the word.
Yes.
So Paul has a lot of these studies. God love him. He's got these interactive studies all over. I'm in his room right now. Like they're all over. Books out the wazoo, like everywhere. And I was just like, let me just start with Paul's stuff and let me adapt it. I'm really big into I call them the gang. I don't call them kids. I don't call them adults. It's a loving term. I have the gang. Okay. So you'll hear me use the gang for the adults or kids who happen to be affected by disability. And so I just started adapting Paul's curriculum for the gang. I didn't specifically want to water it down, but I wanted to adapt it because the gang gets it.
Yeah. And Kim has apraxia, right?
She has a deletion on her first chromosome, and the chromosome specialist, whatever he's called, he he said it's like a forest and one tree was cut down. So my mother, after I told my mother, her first thing she said was, that must have been a pretty important tree. God
Yeah.
love her. She's in heaven now. And so, I mean, she has mobility issues. And the apraxia it takes 700 muscles, I have been told, to speak, coordinating.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can attest to that, I have physical therapy background. There are a lot of muscle in the face. Yes, absolutely.
It's
And
crazy.
the facial.
It's crazy. So the apraxia she has, and her disabilities expressed with autism. She's got some visual stuff going. She only sees out she doesn't have the dimension. She uses one eye kind of at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, like when we have the gang all together in Bethesda, I would say she's probably one of the most affected kids by disability. What do I mean by, the behavior, the impatience? Yeah, yeah. So where was I going? Okay.
So, basically out of that, you realized she's understanding the word of God. She's understanding it, and others can too. We can just say that we have absolutely seen that with our daughter, Abby. There came a time in our lives where there was a lot of crisis going on with her. And we just realized we need to pour the word of God into her. And we just started singing Bible verses because music seems to be a way that it's memorized in her brain. It's understood.
Yep.
And she will say Joshua 1:9.
Oh yeah.
Do not fear. God will be with me wherever I go. Things like
I
that.
love it.
Yeah. So go ahead. We'd love to hear more.
Absolutely. So, and I wrote this down because it's one of the verses we use for Bethesda, and it's from Psalm 119, verse 130. The teaching of your word gives light, so even the simple can understand.
That's so good.
I know. So even the simple can understand. And in God's view, I don't know if I can express this. We're all very simple.
Mm-hmm.
He's the king.
Yeah.
He is the creator. He is the designer. He is the definer of life. Like I always say, I am like an ant, maybe, looking at the Empire State Building. We're all simple in some ways before the Lord, and he does teach me. I think I'm the challenge sometimes. And so Bethesda is really based on that the gang learns, the gang can understand, go for it. And it's just glorious. It's a glorious experience for us.
Yeah, we'd love to hear stories that you have, of maybe someone being affected by this ministry. Like what have you seen?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. So yesterday I was talking with Felicia. She runs the show. She tells me what to do, and she's wonderful. She's so patient with me. She's wonderful. And I said, Felicia, what should I talk about? And she's like, our study. Just talk about, we have a local study, okay? And we've been meeting since 2016. And when we started in Felicia's house. And when the gang came, there were some kids I thought were nonverbal. Like they didn't talk. They kind of I'm trying to think. I think I'll use their names because they're just amazing. They're my brothers and sisters. So Matt came in and he's such a gentle soul. And I didn't know if he talked. I have no idea. This is for like a year. And then Becky, I don't know if she talked or read, didn't have a clue. And the gang, it enveloped into this. We just had a pool party and with a picture. If I had technology, I would show it to you, or I can get Felicia to give it to you. It was just lined up with the gang and with their parents and how we care about one another. It is a church within a church.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. This gang is incredible. How they pray, how they love, how they don't forget. They don't forget what they've learned in the Word. So now, as they come in, and it's hard to start the study because they're all talking. It's just like, hang on, okay, can we start up? It's so sweet, and how they part of our Bethesda, we actually read the Word, and we have it color coded to follow the Scripture. So when we have questions, we can go back and say, look at let's take a look at the purple verse. It's just easier for them. Their life is hard. You want to make things as easy as you can.
Yes.
And the gang reads. If they have trouble, maybe not understanding them, it's incredible. Like with Kimberly, we call her God voice. Like, Kim, do you want to use your God voice? And it's her speaking. It's very difficult to understand. Maybe in 20 words you might get to. I'm telling you, they're quiet. They listen. They're respectful. I could cry. Like afterwards, they clap. Like, does the church do that? Are you kidding me? Like, I need to learn. Do I do that? Like Jill, it's beautiful. So, and they have fun. Fun's a really big thing for me. I love fun.
That's so good.
And that is in the study. So, like, for example, we just finished, we talked about the ingredients to love. So love is patient, kind, doesn't think of its own interest, but thinks of others. So just for an example, so for patient, I use that scene from Zootopia. We start out, we use movie clips, the kids dress up, all that stuff, but the movie clip for patience was from Zootopia with the sloth. Have you seen it?
It's the best.
I mean, like, the rabbit's like hanging off every word the sloth is saying. And the gang, they'll remember that.
Yeah.
Just like, I'll remember that. It's different. I would love to go to a women's Bible study that has a kick more fun.
I'm with you. That's so great.
It's just fun, it's just sweet. Yes. Yes. Is that enough to answer that question?
Oh, love it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, just the heart of meeting them where they're at, and then appreciating it so much and realizing there's something God is teaching us, maybe more than them, even through their disability. It's beautiful.
It's just amazing. And let me just put this in, and then there going to be another question. So one of the guys is Dylan, very talented. He has autism. He's affected with autism, and he's an artist. And he's the one who does all of our drawings for our material.
Beautiful.
And it's just so sweet. So, but this is very funny. So while he's drawing, Felicia says, Jill, you have to make sure he's on track. Because if he goes off track, it takes a while to bring him back on track. So he knows this. He's just a wonderful kid. So when I'm kind of observing him at his office, or his desk, and he bunkers down and kind of hides his drawing, like under his arm. And I'm like, hey, Dylan, you know what I'm supposed to be doing here. You got to cut me a break. So then I'll lift up his elbow for me to do a quick peek. And it's just, the gang. We are all people with all differences.
That's right.
All of us. All of us. We all have quirks. So.
One of the questions I have is, how did you get the word out and the word to these families, these adults, children with special needs, so that they were starting to come together? I know you have your daughter. You jumped in. You stepped in the gap. That's what parents do when there's not a study available, and then broadening that to now you have the gang.
Yeah. So we started out in a basement of our church with 3 kids, one including Kim, and Paul was actually showing them Rembrandt pictures of Christ with the light on the Lord. And these kids, you could have heard a pin drop.
Mhm.
They love to learn. They love to learn. And then we heard about it's a lot of word of mouth that spread it. I was thinking how to answer this. If you remember the movie Field of Dreams, maybe not. I say it probably
Oh
dates
no.
me.
Oh, we do.
And if you build it, they will come.
Mhm.
Yes.
And if you build it, they will come. The community, I believe itself, of parents having kids affected by disability, talk to one another, and there's links like Johnny and Friends. We go to Johnny and Friends camp.
Mhm.
So that was a link. One of our churches around here has a fairly good size disability ministry. That was another link. But again, it wasn't teaching. The gang wasn't learning. I wanted the gang to know the word.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of, I don't, or does that kind of answer your question?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, and one of the things is we all have a heart for this, right? We
Mhm.
have a heart for developing these ministries, in particular in churches, because it is so needed. That is the whole body, right? And you mentioned Field of Dreams. It's very interesting because when we first started this, what we heard a lot of was, oh no, if we build it,
Mhm.
they will come. And we really wanted to have this conversation because to encourage churches, yeah, do not fear this. This is God designed. It's the full body. It's the full spectrum, if you will, right?
Definitely.
And so we
Yes.
want to see those with disability in the church learning, growing, serving
Mhm.
as the full body. And there's so much to be learned from those with disability and special needs,
Oh my.
as well as vice
Oh
versa.
my.
So, just speak to that, like your heart for that.
Yeah.
I'd love to-
It's funny that the fear is, I just take myself back to before I had Kim. And we have a children's hospital in Philadelphia. And sometimes with our first three kids, Courtney, Ashley, and John, I call them first family, second family. Kim was kind of like the dividing line before Kim, after Kim, kind of like A, B, C, and AD. Anyway, when I would go down to CHOP, Children's Hospital, BK, before Kim, and we would get in an elevator with somebody with pretty significant disability, I froze.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it was visual to the person, but in my mind, do I help them? Do I look at them? Do I ask them if they need help? Oh my goodness, my kids are staring. Oh my goodness, I have to, you know what I mean? You go through, like, you're only going from the first floor to the second floor. This is all going on in your head. So I think that is I want people to know that's normal,
Right.
whatever normal is. And Paul has said this to me, and I think of it often. Love is messy.
Mm,
Oh
mhm.
my. Oh my. And I'm not real big on mess. I'm not. When Kim cooks in the kitchen, I have to leave. It's like the French chef in the Muppets. I can't take it.
Oh.
Chasing that lobster with that. Yeah, they
Keep
just
the knife
want
on
you
there.
leave. You know what I mean? Like, but I get it. I get it. And I don't belittle that. I don't judge that. I get that. And I think, I, I think when they see uh, what the word says about First Corinthians 12, I printed it out because it's just so powerful. We actually have a Bible study on this. We haven't printed it yet. We just finished it. And I love this, how it talks about, in fact, some parts of the body, this is 22, verse 22. In fact, some parts of the body that seem weakest and least important are actually the most necessary. And the parts we regard as less honorable are those we clothe with the greatest care. So we carefully protect those parts that should not be seen, while the more honorable parts do not require this special care. So God's put the body together, such honor and care are given to those parts who have less dignity. So, let me read that again. Extra honor and care are given to those parts that have less dignity. And I think, we're okay with the ramps. We're okay with the bigger bathrooms. But we're not okay with that is that a word? Spontaneity. That
Yeah.
spontaneity of a noise.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Of a movement.
Of a meltdown.
Exactly. Been there, done. Oh,
Absolutely.
hello. And I worked for a while in the library. I was at the checking books out. And that was kind of after the teaching, and I was waiting what God was doing. And our library just welcomed so many people affected by disability. I mean, they just came in droves. And I would come home and say to Paul, the library's doing this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't the church?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
Why isn't the church? And so one of the things we've done, and it's really been fun. So we talk about the parts of the body. So am I okay talking? I don't want to take too much time.
Oh, I love it.
Bring it.
Okay. So one of the things we've done is I showed, we list about the parts of the body that are seen, your eyes, your nose. We talk about the parts that are unseen, a heart, blood vessels. Okay. Then we talk about quickly the jobs of both. Your heart ain't beating, honey. You're not going to blink your blue eyes. It just isn't going to happen. And so then we show a video of this incredible snowboarder who won the medal gig in the world, the Olympics.
Yeah.
This kid, you watch this kid. I forget his name. I mean, it was gorgeous. And the gang gets this. I said, what happens if his right leg says, I'm not going to bend that knee anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they get this. They remember.
Mm-hmm.
They remember. So then we got the gang. This is great. And we've done this in front of churches. We got it. So that it's like I'm here and then my hands are tucked in. And let's say Felicia's behind me and it's her arms that come out of my sides. Okay. Do you understand what I'm saying? So she's hidden.
Yeah.
And so it's her arms that are in front of me because my arms are at the side.
Uh-huh.
And so she can't see where my mouth is. And she has to feed me pudding.
Oh, what a good practical example.
And it's how the body has to work together to glorify God. And when you're missing a part, so when she's feeding me, she's missing her eyes. And it's not in my mouth. The pudding is not in my mouth.
Everywhere but.
Things can be messy. Like you
And
said
it's
earlier.
this is what the church, on my feet are tapping. The church is missing
Mm-hmm.
this beauty, this power of weakness. And it's where Jesus lives. He lives in this weakness.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Look at every example in the Bible of using the least of these, the youngest, the weakest, you name it.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
our daughter does such a good job of showing what unconditional love is. She goes out and she has no inhibition to just loving. And I watch her and it's like, my word, that is what Jesus would do. He would engage people without any kind of predisposition on anything else getting in the way. And she does that. And she's such an example of what Jesus would really be like if, with us right here. And,
Absolutely.
and we were talking about the church and looking at this, and I think there's so much intimidation on what they don't know. So how would you take that and say, take those next steps? What are the action steps to get them into the ministry and providing something? Mm-hmm.
One of the things that Courtney, so she's our oldest, she's the one who's going to be 50. That's just crazy to me. Anyway, she took the Gospels and she used an X-Acto knife. She cut out all the parts of the Gospels that had anything to do with disability. Pages are missing. It's at the office now, or else I would have shown it to you. It's incredible. Like you hold up a piece of it. It's incredible. This has really moved people. God's used this. Mm-hmm. And so we'll say, is this Bible, these Gospels, is this complete? No. And that's the church. The church is not complete. Mm-hmm. And I think I went through a period where I was more like an orangutan. Like, what? Like when I come home and teaching those Sunday school lessons and you came up with your own curriculum, like there wasn't anything.
Right.
There's nothing. There's nothing. That's another story.
Hey,
but where was I going with this?
Action steps, like how to encourage a church to even just start.
Yeah. And I just think when they see that the word is not complete, mm-hmm. When they actually saw that Bible, they were like, wow, oh, you're right. You're really right. And so when I was an orangutan, it was like my, I wouldn't say war path. I don't mean that. But it was like, now it's more like you are missing something that is so beautiful. Like the word, the Gospels without disability. It's the disability that brings these miracles. Like it brings the glory. It brings the power, the life, who Christ was to the word. Mm-hmm. And that's the church needs.
Well, and their hearts are willing and open to receive. And no one, that experienced Jesus, whose heart was cold, experienced him. Like their hearts had to be open. And the disability is the avenue, the freeway, literally, to just open their hearts to receive Jesus.
It was. And absolutely. And it's just, there is a lot of fear. And I think the teaching has to be done.
Yeah.
Education goes a long way. And that's what we try to do with Bethesda.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely love that. And your background's education too. So you have that expertise to say, we need to start with that. Just letting the church know why this is important. What is it like?
And it's okay to have this is scary.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
And it
is. And, again, my background's in physical therapy, and I can remember, same as you, prior to having my own daughter, having a little trepidation, having to kind of say, okay, nope, gotta push into this. And so that's a normal human response, is we're often afraid of what we don't know. And absolutely. I think with the younger generation coming behind us, we see a lot more quick acceptance because they're just surrounded by it. Frankly, there's just so much now and so much more known. And that's really a good start, is to educate, like you said, just to have a tangible example, like the Bible literally missing pages when you don't have those pages about disability. So therefore, look at the example of that and extrapolate that's the body. We need those people in our church.
We are missing. Yeah, we are missing pieces.
Yes.
Pieces of a body.
That's right.
In our church.
Yeah.
And it is the parts that God says are most honorable.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So, we often recommend, go to your pastor and have a bit of a plan, have some ideas. Because often I think the pastors are, they have so much going on. They're so overwhelmed. This is not their area of expertise, unless you have a pastor with a family member, maybe that has special needs, right? And they may not take ownership over it because of that. But if you have that, in you to want to see this happen in your church, go to the pastor and say, let's just have like an information meeting and let's talk about, let's do that example of the Bible. I love that. And then let's reach out, and you have curriculum that we're going to put in the show notes so that people can reach out and look into that. And that can be used. So there's resources out there, right? And just start with that. Love that.
Absolutely.
But then,
Absolutely.
and
love takes time. Like, it just takes more time. Like, God knew I needed to slow down and listen to Kim type out a sentence.
Yeah.
And the church needs that.
Yeah.
The church needs to just slow down. And it's hard. Some mornings it's really hard.
Yeah.
Because you want to fill in her words. I want to answer for her. Nope. God says, gotta stop, Jill. And I say, okay, got that, Lord. But it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah.
But it's sweet. It's sweet. What a sweet place to be.
I love that. I love that. Seeing the blessings in it. And boy, do I empathize with our daughter slowing us down. And
one of the fruits is patience. Yep.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
The sloth.
Don't
forget the sloth. The rabbit. I'm like that rabbit hanging over.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. If you can combine the rabbit from Winnie the Pooh, who's always upset and anxious and it's got to be done exactly right, with that sloth, the patience they would take. I love that. Well, Jill, one of the things we love to do every time we talk to a guest is to ask them, what's one thing you would like to share with our listeners that would help bring hope for the road ahead? It's hard to pick one, huh?
I was thinking about this stuff this morning. And one of the things I love, I hit this about 10 years ago when I was reading the Word. It's from Isaiah 35:8. And a great road will go through that once deserted land. It will be named the Highway of Holiness. And I think that's the one, when the Lord works, he people have used the word ripple, like when you throw a stone in. He is a master. He's a master. And I think that highway of holiness, I love to think about that because it entails so much. And to me, it entails so much richness and awe and power and unexpectancy and glory. And I think a lot of times churches, families, when you have a diagnosis of a disability, it can be like, whoop. And over time, so Kim's 41. I think over time, you just see this highway just becoming, it's full of other people. It's full of life. And I think what I felt in the beginning was so isolated. And now I feel it's so full. can't quite, that's like the one his ways are just not our ways. And he takes us places we wouldn't volunteer to go, but I would never change it.
Mhm.
Never,
Mhm.
never. And I think the church can experience that.
Mhm.
And is it messy? Lord have mercy. I'm hiding in the third floor because if Kimmer comes home, it's going to be like, you'll hear how crazy it is. I thought, I think I'll just hide upstairs.
Boy, do we hear that, as we're recording. Our daughter's in her
Mhm.
day program right now. So we get it. We get it. Oh, that's just beautiful.
Mhm.
Jill,
Oh,
thank you so much for coming and sharing your
Thank you.
story and your story of starting a ministry and what that's done for your family, other families, the individuals themselves.
Mhm.
It's just beautiful. It's
Well,
beautiful.
thank you for loving the gang and loving the church and
Mhm.
doing what you both do. It's really awesome. It's the kingdom. It's
That's
the
right.
kingdom.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Resources and contact information for today's podcast will be included in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share us with others and be sure to follow us so you won't miss an episode. And we'd love to hear from you, so please leave us a comment or rating and connect with us on social media or on our website at hopeonthehardroad.org.